Hello, and welcome to the applicant webinar for the Native American Library Services Basic Grant Program. My name is Anthony Smith, Associate Deputy Director for the Office of Library Services Discretionary Programs. In this webinar, I'll be providing information about IMLS and the Native American Library Services Basic Grant Program. We will review eligibility, go over the application process, the different application components, and also offer you a few tips and suggestions. Our goal is to help make the application process as easy as possible while helping to ensure that all application requirements are being met. Now, for those of you who are new, the Institute of Museum and Library Services is an independent grant-making agency and the primary source of federal support for the nation's libraries and museums. IMLS helps ensure that all Americans have access to museum and library services all across the country. Our primary function is grant making. However, we also host convenings, conduct research, and publish information about museums and libraries in service to user communities. Eligibility for IMLS grants varies and can depend upon the specific program. Our vision and mission statements were adopted as part of the agency's current strategic plan, where both emphasize that IMLS is here to support museums and libraries with the work you do to serve your specific communities. The IMLS strategic plan identifies goals that help us achieve our vision and accomplish our mission. In Goal 1, IMLS seeks to advance engaged learning opportunities for library and museum users of all ages and interests. It also supports the professional development of the museum and library workforce. In Goal 2, IMLS promotes community engagement in libraries and museums, including inclusive engagement across diverse audiences and community collaboration. In Goal 3, IMLS supports collection care and management activities and promotes access to museum and library collections. In terms of our authorization and budget, IMLS was reauthorized in 2018 by the Museum and Library Services Act. The IMLS 2021 fiscal year budget is $257 million, and we are currently operating under a continuing resolution for fiscal year 2022. Almost 5.3 million of that is allotted for Native American Basic and Enhancement and Native Hawaiian Library Services grants. So that brings us to the Native American Library Service Basic Grant Program. Now, this program provides support for library operations and services. The deadline to apply is March 1st, 2022. These grants are non-competitive, one-year grants with awards made anywhere between $6,000 and $10,000. Of this amount, up to $3,000 can be used for eligible professional development, which includes travel, as well as different types of library assessment activities, although it is not required. These awards support any and all existing library operations and as well as new library services, such as expanding collections, new staff support, technology implementation, and other costs that directly benefit your library user community. As long as you meet eligibility requirements and submit all of the application documents by the deadline, you'll receive funding. In 2021, we awarded a little over 1.8 million to 172 Indian tribes, Alaska Native villages, and regional and village corporations. All federally recognized Indian tribes and Alaska Native villages or corporations are eligible to apply. So who's eligible for this program? Indian tribes are eligible to apply for funding under the Native American Library Services Basic Grant Program. For purposes of funding under this program, Indian tribe means any tribe, band, nation, or other organized group or community, including any Alaska Native village, regional corporation, or village corporation, which is recognized by the Secretary of Interior as eligible for special programs and services provided by the United States to Indians because of their status as Indians. A list of eligible entities is available from the Bureau of Indian Affairs. Again, the tribe, village, or corporation itself must apply for the grant. A school, tribal college, Department of Education, or other entity that might contain the library cannot apply for the tribe on behalf of the tribe. Although entities like these can be partners and administer a grant for the tribe. The assumption is such a partnership is that the tribal community that applies for the grant is directly served and benefits from the grant activities that are carried out by the partner. For these grants, the tribe must have an existing library to be eligible. The library must have a regularly scheduled hours, staff, and materials available for library users in order to receive funding. The staff can be full-time or part-time, paid or volunteer. Okay, next we'll talk about the application process itself. And so everything you need for the application process is available on our website at www.imls.gov under the Apply for a Grant tab. Once you click on the Native American Library Services Basic Grant for fiscal year 2022, notice a funding opportunity. You'll find the funding opportunity number that you can enter into Grants.gov. And you'll want to jot down and remember the funding opportunity number, and as circled on the screen in red. This year it is NAG-Basic-FY22. Here's a few things you'll want to do in advance of applying. Download and review the notice of funding. You'll also want to download the application forms listed in the notice of funding. If you don't have a DUNS number, you'll want to start this process right away since it can take several weeks to process. You'll want to confirm that your tribe has an active SAM registration. If not, this can be done at sam.gov. Finally, you'll need to confirm if the tribe has an existing Grants.gov account, and if not, one will need to be created. Again, you'll need all three: a DUNS, sam.gov registration, and then the last Grants.gov registration. Remember, this can take a significant amount of time, so please check on these early. In order for an application to be considered for funding, it must be received by midnight Eastern Time on March 1st. Applications received after the deadline cannot be considered. So let's review the specific application components that are required for the application. Our notice of funding includes a table that has all of the application components, what kind of format they need to be submitted as, and which file name to use when you're submitting your application package. Use this list as a checklist of all the documents you will need to submit on March 1st or by March 1st. You want to make sure your application is complete so that it's not rejected because you missed or forgot any required documents. The Native American Library Services Basic Grant application has 6 required application documents and 1 conditionally required document. The application cover form, or SF-424S, the IMLS Supplementary Information Form, or SIF, and the IMLS Library Discretionary Program Information Form, which are all completed during the Grants.gov submission process. A library services plan, which is a narrative that you create, which can be up to 3 pages in length. The IMLS budget form and the performance measurement plan, which you can download from the IMLS website. And if your plan includes the creation of any kind of digital products, you must write a digital products plan. And this plan is conditionally required because not all projects will create digital products. Finally, as a reminder, all forms must be submitted as PDF documents. Now, because Grants.gov is a system that exists outside of IMLS, we cannot help you if you have problems with downloading materials or submitting materials on the site. The Grants.gov support team, however, is very helpful and who we turn to if help is needed. Now, they're available 24 hours a day and can be reached by email or by phone. If you have any problems with Grants.gov, reach out to the support team directly. On this slide are links to the different resources Grants.gov has available to help you, particularly with using their workspace function. We have a link here for one YouTube video, but there are a number of different videos, all about 3 to 4 minutes long, that show you how different parts of the workspace function. We recommend you view those to understand more. There are a number of benefits for using the workspace. One is that multiple people from your organization can work on an application at the same time. Another is that the next year, when you go to apply in subsequent years, you can reuse what you put in the previous year, so you won't be starting from scratch. Also, all the activity is documented, so you can see if someone submitted a document, which documents, and if the entire application package was submitted and when. You'll also get a tracking number that you can share with us in case anything unusual happens and we need to investigate or further. When you're on the Grants.gov site, use the funding opportunity number you found in the IMLS notice of funding opportunity for basic grants. And again, circled in red on the display, this is NAG-basic-FY22. This number will get you the application package materials that you need to start the process. Download the application package by clicking on the package tab on the right and then clicking apply. You must use the Grants.gov workspace platform to submit your application. So this is the SF424S, which stands for short form, which is one of the most important parts of your application. The information you put on this form, including the name of the authorizing official, is entered into our grants management database. These staff are the contacts for the award and the people who are authorized to make financial decisions on behalf of the tribe. If once you receive your award, any of these people leave or are replaced, it's really important that you let us know ASAP using our new grants management system, EGMS Reach, so that we can update your tribe's information. You can complete the SF424S in Grants.gov directly. The supplementary information form is also part of Grants.gov. It's a Grants.gov form found in the application package. Instructions for completing the form can be found there, but please make sure you just check yes or no and provide the information requested. You'll want to be sure that the funds requested match your budget and library service plan budget summary. So there's 3 different places where your budget information would be listed. First would be in the supplementary information form, but then you would also have that information in your budget and your budget summary. Do not include cost share or indirect costs. Include 1 or 2 sentences that summarize your library services plan. The library program information form is also a Grants.gov form found in the application package. Federally recognized tribes are not required to answer the organizational financial information, but please put a 0 under total revenue and total expenses for each year to avoid error messages when you submit the form. Select one of the 3 IMLS agency level goals with which your project best aligns. Select Native American Library Services Basic Grants as the grant program. Your library services plan should describe no more than 3 pages what you plan to do with the grant funds and discuss what you are focusing on during the year. You should also explain why you think the work is important. If you plan to carry out any professional development or library service assessment activities, you'll also need to describe these activities here in the library services plan. It should also include information about how you will carry out your plan to make sure it's successful and what results you plan to achieve. If you're new to federal award making, there are some new standards for measuring performance of federally funded grant activities. To meet this new requirement for this program, you'll also need to include information about how you will measure performance in terms of effectiveness and timeliness. And you'll also need to identify and describe in your application what data you will collect, how often, and from what source in order to produce performance measures for effectiveness and timeliness. Make sure to include a budget summary that describes all budget items included in the IMLS budget form. All the information you provide here should match what is in your budget. We'll have to check to make sure you don't go over the $3,000 limit for educational and assessment activities. So the description will be very helpful. And again, please make sure this and all your other documents are PDFs. Workspace does not convert documents automatically. So as you work within Grants.gov using their workspace function, it's important that you create the PDF documents because again, the software will not do that conversion for you. Okay, so you can also include cost to attend or present at conferences, costs for continuing education or other training and other related travel. And this includes registration, travel, hotel, per diem, that sort of thing. Temporary staff cost when regular staff are attending courses, etc. Consultant fees for on-site professional library assessment, and that includes technology and digitization. These types of activities can be funded for up to $3,000 and is something you have the option to include if you wish to take advantage of. and keeping in mind that $10,000 is always the maximum for any Native American Basic Award. If you do decide to use the Professional Development Library Assessment option, you'll need to describe this in your library services plan. Okay, so the Native American Library Service Basic Grant Program will use the following two performance measures that I mentioned just a little while ago as a basis for understanding the level of performance. The grant program as well as each individual award. For effectiveness, the extent to which activities contribute to achieving the intended results of the project. And for timeliness, we're referring to the extent to which each task activity is completed within the time frame proposed. The performance measurement plan should show how you will monitor and assess your performance as a grantee from the perspective of effectiveness and timeliness. Now, for each measure, identify what data you will collect from what source, the method you will use to collect it, and according to what schedule. The chart on this slide provides sample statements for each measure and a space to record your own. You're welcome to use a fillable version of the chart, which you can access through the Notice of Funding opportunity. And limit your performance measurement plan to just one page, and again, save your document as a PDF file. And this is a standard budget form. It's required for all basic grant applications. The total amount you request, which you should have on page 4 of the budget form, should be between $6,000 and $10,000. You should have a description of costs for each section as well as the respective dollar amounts. Please note that even though there's a section for indirect cost on the form, indirect costs are not allowed for basic grants. Neither is cost sharing. Those columns should all have zeros in them. You can download this form through the Notice of Funding opportunity, through the NOFO. Once you open that, you'll find the links to those specific that budget form. And remember that you must submit this form, like all the others, as a PDF document. So basic grants, grant funds can be used for permanent staff salary and benefits. They can be used for temporary and project staff. Funds can be used for collection development, equipment like computers and e-readers, library software, library furnishings and shelving, and other supplies. Special programming, internet services. Funds can be used for digitization and any other types of costs. These examples are found in the Notice of Funding opportunity, section D6, but are not exhaustive. So if you're wondering if a particular expense is allowable, that's not in the list in the Notice of Funding, just let us know and we'll try to help clarify. If your project includes any digital content, resources, assets, software, or data sets, be sure to write a digital products plan. This is the optional document I mentioned earlier. Remember, it's conditionally required, which means it is required if there's any kind of digital product or content that you're going to create with IMLS funds. These are some examples of what IMLS considers digital products. you know, oral histories that you've converted to digital files is a great example of that. Websites about community events, apps for library patrons, online curricula for teachers and students, images of community meetings, and a plethora of other possibilities exist. So please make sure to write a plan, digital products plan if you need to do so. Remember, your application must be submitted by March 1st. You should hear back from us in July when you will receive the official award notification. And your period of performance will begin on August 1st and run for the next 12 months from there. Okay, next we'll provide some tips to help you with your application process. First, register early. You must have the DUNS number and an active SAM.gov registration and a current and functional Grants.gov registration. You must have a DUNS number to register with SAM.gov, right? And you must have an active SAM.gov registration to register with Grants.gov. So you need to have the functional Grants.gov registration to submit a basic grant application to IMLS. These steps take time and they're sequential. And so we just encourage you to start right away. Remember that your SAM.gov registration expires each year and you have to renew it. Now you can log into SAM.gov at any time and find out your status. And I would certainly recommend doing that as soon as possible. So start right away organizing what you need to apply and understanding who in your organization can help with the registration and certain aspects, who can confirm DUNS, who can confirm SAM and Grants.gov registration. And remember to save all your documents as PDF files. Grants.gov can't convert them for you, so you'll have to do that part of the submission process. Upload your application files to Grants.gov prior to the deadline. I would encourage setting a date prior to the deadline in case something unforeseen comes up requiring more time, but just setting a target well in advance of the March 1 deadline. Use Grants.gov workspace. It's a great way to organize the work of the application process in one work environment and with any of your work partners who have a role to play in the application prep and submission process. Be sure to double check the uploaded files against the table of application components in the notice of funding opportunity, or the NOFO as we call it. Again, remember there's the table in the notice of funding that will serve as a checklist against all the application components that need to be submitted. So you'll want to use that to make sure you haven't forgotten anything or may have inadvertently left something out. You can resubmit before the deadline. So if you do notice that you've submitted the application and you notice that you may have left something out, you can resubmit before the deadline if you need to. So keep that in mind as well. This might be helpful. Yeah, if you forget something, it could be very helpful for you. Okay, so for questions about eligibility, your library service plan and project activities, the digital products plan, your budget, including allowability of cost, don't hesitate to contact me directly. There's my contact information. For questions about application requirements and deadlines, be sure to communicate those to Maeve or Sheena, and we've provided their contact information as well. Thank you for listening in, and we look forward to hearing from you and receiving your application. And as always, best wishes from IMLS.